Hello everybody, Toby here. Welcome to another Stratego game analysis. In this game we're going to talk about my huge blunder and how you can avoid it. We're going to talk about scouting bluffs and when you might want to call those bluffs. We're going to talk about the concept of defending your bombs. I'm going to talk about the concept of planning ahead for a counterattack. I'm going to talk about the long-range two-square rule trap. And we're going to talk about the importance of knowing where a piece is originated from at the start of the game. So let's get started. I'm playing a game with a flag up front. Don't do this. I always advise beginners to keep their flag surrounded by bombs. That way an opponent can't lotto your flag. They have to bring a miner down to get to your flag. So don't do that. So let's get started. Get the game rolling. I'm glad I go first. So my opponent attacks this piece with a scout, and usually I pause a few seconds because I want them to think if I have a bomb over here, I might have a symmetrical setup, and I might have a bomb over here. So now I cover my flag. And the goal every time I have a flag here is to clear this column until I find a bomb, and then I stop and play a normal game. If I don't find a bomb in this column, then I move the back row along the back row until I find a bomb, and then I stop and play a normal game. So that's my goal early on, is to just try to slowly, methodically clear this column, but not try to do it like I'm a Marshall blitzer. So that's what we try to do. All right, so he's probing my right side. So we found so far a scout and a sergeant over here. So I'm thinking this might be a weak side, but he's just probing with low pieces. Now he comes down with a piece here, and I don't like this. This is probably a miner defusing this bomb here, taking the bomb away. And I think that's a waste of a miner early on in the game. Miners are very important. And he didn't find out much. He just took the bomb, and he lost his miner. So he scouted my captain, so that's important. So you have to know he knows my sergeant and my captain. So now I'm going to move up here, and I'm going to make a major blunder. Right here I made a major blunder. Now why when I attacked this piece here with my sergeant, why was this a major blunder? Pause the video and think for a minute why this was a terrible move on my part. Now, the reason this was a really dumb move is because if this would have been a sergeant, both pieces would have canceled and would have been taken off the board, and it would have been my opponent's turn. And if he had a scout here, he could have moved to find out what this piece was, and he would have won the game. And I actually lost. I think I lost the game doing this. So it was a terrible mistake on my part. So the reason why it might affect you in your games, you have to think sometimes you might be attacking, and this could be a spy. And if you move up with a piece and it gets canceled out, if you attack first and it's the same piece, then that person might scout your spy just like they could scout my flag. Or else you might have a marshal, a high piece like a marshal or a general, and once you attack and they get swapped out, they could scout your high piece, and that could cause you a lot of problems. So just remember that your piece behind this piece can get revealed if it's the same piece that you attack. So luckily that wasn't a sergeant. Now my opponent, he's doing a real smart thing on this side. He scouted my captain, and he knows this is a sergeant, so he's bringing up a piece. And I really wasn't paying attention to what it was or where it came from. I thought maybe it came from here, but it originally came from here. So he's bluffing. I call it a scouting bluff. He's bringing a low piece, and he's bringing it in here. And since he knows that I know that he knows what these pieces are, he probably thinks, or wants me to believe that this is higher than a captain, so I won't attack him. And his goal is he wants to attack this piece behind the leg. And it's always important to attack the pieces behind the leg because they usually have the high pieces, the marshals, the colonels, the generals, the spies, and majors. So it's a good idea to bring a low piece in and attack this piece. Now, really, I should be defending this bomb because he already found one bomb, and you don't want to have him find a second bomb so early in the game, especially when you have an open flag, because then he can figure out this might be my weak side, and then if he finds a couple more bombs, then he might totally lotto on this side to try to find my flag. So you really want to defend your bombs actually early on, and try not to let them. Don't let them find them early on with low pieces. You really want your bombs to capture captain or higher, and not a low piece. So I really made a minor blunder here. Now this was smart over here. This was his lieutenant. I didn't move over with my captain. I moved over first with my scout. I was hoping a scout would check what this piece was, because if I would have moved my captain over, we would have swapped. We probably would have swapped scouts, but then he might have moved his lieutenant over. So, but that worked out great that he wasted a scout on the captain. So now he's going to come down with this minor piece, and he's going to scout this. And I respected it. I thought maybe it could have been a major. But that's why you have to know where the piece came from. See, his piece originated here. I thought it might have come from here. And if it came from this spot, it might have been a major. It's not as likely to be a major from here. It probably could have been a lieutenant or a scout or sergeant, maybe a captain. But usually on the 6 open spots on the front row, usually beginners have low pieces. So he got me there. That was a good move on him with the scouting bluff. So now he knows 2 bombs. So that's really not good for me. I should have done a better job at defending my bomb. All right, now we also know I moved already, but when a piece comes from behind the leg on the sides, and you have a piece in this column, if you don't move it on your next move, if you don't move it over, it's trapped with the 2 square rule. If I stay here now, and I move this piece, now this piece can come down and capture my captain. So if I go over here, he can go over here, and it's a 2 square rule. It's just long distance. So you have to be aware of that. Anytime a piece comes out from behind the leg, if you're in this row, you have to get on a diagonal. You don't want to stay in that same column. You have to move over. Otherwise, they can come down and take my piece. Now, I don't really have to worry because he has to be concerned what these 2 pieces are. So I can just leave it there. But I have to know that this piece is trapped. This piece is trapped by this piece. So what I have to do is either move these pieces out to create an escape lane, or just sit here now, since I already moved, and pretend that this and this or this is a high piece, maybe a marshal, and then he won't come down and take me. Or what I could do is I could move it out of the way. I could move over here, and then he might move over here to keep this 2 square rule trap in effect, and then I could bluff with these scouts. I could come out with this, and then I can come out with this, and then what I'm essentially doing is trying to get an escape lane for my piece, so this piece won't capture my captain. So that's fine. I'm glad this wasn't a major, because that's a common spot for a major. So now I decided to bring up a big gun, and I'm worried about this piece here because usually players have They're good pieces behind the lake, and this is a very popular spot for a marshal, usually on the outside front row. And it could be a general too, so I wouldn't bring my colonel straight up here. That would be very dangerous. This is the type of piece here that you want to scout. So I didn't want this piece to take my lieutenant. I decided to swap. This could have been a scout. So I don't want him to find out my colonel yet. Now I'm thinking this is a scout. And I want to find out what this piece is here. He's used a lot of scouts early, so I'm thinking this was a scout too. But that's a gamble now. He's baiting me to attack him so I don't find out what this piece is. And maybe I should have gone down there because I thought it was a scout, and I assumed this was a high piece, either a marshal or general, but it's nice to know which one it is. So I decided to attack this piece. Now I'm gambling though, because if this is a scout and he comes down here and he attacks this piece, he's going to win the game. But I'm almost 100% sure he's going to attack my colonel because he wanted to attack it. And my colonel can't get away, so he'll definitely find out what this piece is. And he really wanted to find. He already wasted one scout trying to find out what it is. So I'm feeling pretty confident that I can take this and not worry about losing the game. And it was his marshal, so that's great to know. And of course, he does exactly what I expected him to do. He finds out what this is, so I wanted to find out what that is. So we find a minor and the marshal. And so now I'm just going to move my marshal over just in case I have to come up here to defend and maybe swap marshals. But I don't want to go all the way up. I want to give my colonel a lane to come down. But I really want to leave my colonel up here because he might bring his minor down here to check out what this piece is. He might try to force me away and then bring a minor down and then win the game. So I really just have to stay here as long as I'm on the diagonal. We can do the 2 square rule dance and he won't be able to capture me. And then he might think this is a spy. Another thing we know now also, when we go back here for a second, let me go back here. This is very important. When I went here with my scout to check out his marshal, remember, he did not attack me with this piece. So this piece, we can almost be 100% sure is not a scout. He didn't want to, he doesn't want his marshal to be found, but he moved this piece over here. He didn't scout me with this piece. So just remember that this is not a scout. So now he's just trying to see if I know the 2 square rule. And when you find a marshal, what you want to do then is use your scouting pieces to try to find pieces of your opponent to attack. You want to look for colonels, majors, and captains. So it's always good when you have your general placed to have scouts, minors, and sergeants near your general so they can rush out and scout pieces. See, I don't know what these pieces are yet. So I have to take all my sergeant, my minor, my scouts to try to find out what they are, and then I can counterattack with my general. So that's a disadvantage. When your marshal gets revealed, you have to play defense with your general, and any piece you moved becomes a target, or any piece that becomes revealed on your part becomes a target. So always be prepared with your general, or else bring back your marshal to play defense. So that's why it's always important for most players to keep their marshal and general hidden as long as possible. So that was really good. I got one more scout. So he only has one scout left. And also remember, most of his scouts came from here. I think he had 5 scouts over here and only a couple over here. So if he had a semi-balanced scout on his setup, probably his last scout is on this side. So you have to always think about stuff like that, because now I know where his marshal is. Now my spy can come into play. I can bring my spy over here, and I can come up this column, because we know this isn't a scout. So I can come up here and try to capture his marshal. And it's a pretty safe play because he only has one scout left. And there's probably a high probability that the other scout is over here. So I'm just moving my miner up as a scout. I decided to go down because on the 3rd row, you're more likely to find maybe a major or colonel than in this spot here. I found a bomb. That was like a so-so win. I wish it was a movable piece instead of a bomb, but that's okay. So now we're not finding any good pieces yet, but we'll keep on probing. So he's bringing his marshal over to defend, because he might think this is my general. He has to be ready for a general attack. Now he has to be worried that this could be a spy, but that would be incredibly risky. If he wants to move down with his marshal, that would be incredibly risky to allow me to take him if he comes down. But for me to bring up a spy, if this was a spy, to bring it up here in front of a sergeant, that would be super nuts. So it's not that big of a risk for him to go down. So he challenges my lieutenant. I move up. And now I find another piece here. So I didn't feel like chasing this piece. We know these 2 pieces now moved. The bomb was removed from here. So I decided to attack this piece. And the reason being is I analyzed almost 85,000 game setups. And what I learned about bomb allocation is that most players usually, on average, have a half a bomb on the front row. So finding a bomb on the front row is fairly rare. On the 2nd row from the top, you usually find only 1 bomb. So the average player puts 1 bomb on the third row. On the 2nd row here, the average player places 2 bombs. And on the last row, the bottom row, they usually have around 2.5 bombs on. So that's the bomb allocation. So I figure the 3rd row, I found 1 bomb, so I figure it's worth a chance to go down and hit this piece. And the other reason I think it's worthwhile hitting is because it's very rare to find vertical bombs next to one another. Horizontal bombs and vertical bombs, or this would be horizontal bombs, vertical bombs like this with 2 bombs are very rare, and same with horizontal bombs. So usually people space them out, right? You have 3 bombs usually guarding your flag, or 2 in the corner, and then you only have a few bombs for all the other spaces to place them out for defense. So you usually don't put them next to one another. So that's why I decided to attack straight down. But unfortunately, the stats didn't work out for me, and I hit another bomb. But that's not such a big deal with a lieutenant, but that's why you scout with your lower pieces. You don't go in there really with a captain or major, because that's a lot more painful when you lose them to a bomb. So now he's coming over here, and now I'm bringing my spy up. And I think my opponent, he wouldn't mind trading his marshal. And for several reasons. First, trading marshals, since this is known, he doesn't mind trading marshals. And then he doesn't have to worry about my spy. So that's good for him. and then he's in the lead. A lot of times beginners think if they're up a captain or lieutenant, they're going to win the game because all they have to do is swap out, and then they'll have the highest piece on the board. But that's really hard to do with just one high mid-level piece. Now, the other reason my opponent wants to really swap marshals is because, remember over here, my captain is trapped with the 2 square rule. So if this was my marshal and we decide to swap, then he could bring his lieutenant down here and capture my captain. And then he could back up and capture my sergeant. So he's up a lieutenant right now, but then he would be up a captain and a sergeant. So then he would be in a really good shape to win the game. If you have 3 good pieces, 3 mid-level pieces, you have a much better chance of winning than just a lieutenant. So that's probably why he's, I think, eager to swap. But unfortunately for him, I'm bringing up a spy. And he might not think, maybe when you play a lot of beginners, they're very conservative with their spy because they don't play well without it. And I'm really conservative with my spy. But since we know this isn't a scout, and it's probably over here, and he only has 1 scout left, I thought it was worth the chance to try to capture his marshal. Now he thinks about it for a second, and he's probably wondering, is this a spy? And remember, he went down here, he gambled when it wasn't a spy, so he does it here, but unfortunately for him, he gets caught. So when your spy captures a marshal, usually the first thing your opponent will move will be, on the next turn, will be their general. They're going to try to come down and attack any pieces that have moved, and they might even lotto and hope to get a colonel or major to give them a chance to win the game. So you have to be prepared. You have to try to remember what pieces you've moved, get them to safety, and then you have to put your general and marshal in position to defend. Now, usually what happens when you capture a marshal, your opponent moves their general, and then you move your marshal. Try not to do that, because if you move your marshal right away, that's almost a signal to that person that the piece you moved is a marshal. Don't do that. Try to move another piece out of the way, or maybe move your general to make pretend that it's the marshal, because that's usually a dead giveaway with beginners. When the marshal gets captured, the person moves their general on the next move, or else they'll move a piece out of the way so their general can come down to attack. And then the person defending will move their marshal, to try to get centralized, to try to play good defense, but that gives away that piece is a marshal. So try not to do that. Try to move other pieces out of the way, or maybe make pretend your general is a marshal. And I think you'll have much better success at defending a general counterattack. So he's coming down to get my captain. And now, he knows this is a sergeant, but he wants the captain. Because if he goes over here, I'm staying here. I'm not going to attack him, because I'm almost 100% sure that this is the general. And I'm hoping he attacks me and gets off this column and creates a diagonal, so then he can't capture me with the 2 square rule. I'm sacrificing my sergeant to try to save my captain. But unfortunately he doesn't go for it. He knows he can come down and get my captain, and he knows he can get my sergeant, and he needs to get a lot of lower pieces here to make up for his martial loss. So I'm moving pieces out of the way, and I'm making pretend that the general is my marshal. And that's good. That's his last scout. Anytime you have an open flag anywhere, you're always happy that the last scout dies. So now I'm positioning my colonel. I'm bringing him over just in case we swap. I don't want a colonel to come down and lotto and get my lieutenants and other pieces. So I'm chasing the general away. He probably thinks this is my marshal. And I don't want the general to get my sergeant. You always want to get information with your pieces. So we found a lieutenant. So now he's racing over to my colonel, and I'm racing over like I'm panicking. And he comes over and he attacks my marshal. He must have thought this was my general. Maybe he thought I was bluffing with a spy, but it didn't make any sense. I think he just played that too fast. If he thought this was my general, or if he thought this was a spy, he should have moved over here, and then he would have trapped my colonel. So I'm not sure what he was thinking. Maybe he was just playing too fast. Maybe it was a misclick. I don't know. But he ran into the marshal, and then he wound up quitting now. So just think about the techniques and what we talked about in this game, and you'll definitely do better and improve, and then hopefully make it at least to the gold level on Stratego.com. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now.